right, we're here to talk about Python basics. Uh, One thing that you absolutely have to be able to do is obviously install Python. So you can go to python.org, and at python.org you will find this is where the Python software is maintained, and there is a download section, and you can download whatever version of Python is appropriate for your system. There's two major versions of Python right now. There's 2 and 3. Python version 2 is in 2.7, and Python version 3 is in 3.5. There's different reasons to use these. For you probably should stick with Python 3 as much as possible, just to get used to it. We will talk later about differences between versions of Python, and I might show you a few. So you'll download Python 3, and when you download it, if you're on Windows, it'll give you an executable. Python, by the way, comes with Linux or Mac, and there's a really rather easy way to update Python on those versions. And there's instructions in here on how to do that. So if you have a Mac or a Unix or Linux-based machine, then you'll have to consider that. So once you download Python, you can run the executable. The only real thing you need to know, and I've already installed it, but I'll go ahead and modify my installation. You can go ahead and keep all the checkboxes here as appropriate. That's not a problem. And click Next. The one thing that you need to watch for is where you put it. If you're not careful, Python will automatically install in your user directory. And that could be difficult to deal with later on. So what I like to do is install it in its own directory right off the root of the C drive, which is what I've done. So if I were to go into my File Explorer here in Windows, and on my C drive, you'll notice that I have a Python 3 folder where all my Python code is installed to. And I recommend doing this, and you'll see why in a minute when we set up environmental variables. But here's my version Python 2.7 sitting in here as well if I ever need to run something in an older version of Python. So go ahead and specify the appropriate directory and click Install. And I'm not going to do that right now because I just installed this a little while ago. But that'll go ahead and install it. Now, when you're done installing, there's a couple things you'll get. If you're in Windows, you can see that you'll get this Python idle program. The idle program allows you to run commands in what we call interactive mode, which I'll talk about in a minute. It gives you a Python command line, which is nothing more than a command prompt that references the Python executable. And you get some manuals. And that's basically what you get. You also get, of course, all the Python default libraries, which we will use at various points in time during our course, is the Python libraries. So don't worry about what that is right now. We will deal with that later. The big thing you have to worry about once you download and install Python is you have to have your path set up correctly. So if you go to your control panel in Windows, you can also do this, path. You can set up referenceable paths in other operating systems too. Every operating system requires a path variable. This is the one thing you have to figure out in order to get Python to work. When you run Python code, you want to make sure that the Python executable is accessible no matter where you're at. So if I were to, for example, run a command prompt right now in Windows, I really want it to, when I type the word Python, the executable launches, and now I'm in Python. See, so Python's waiting for me to execute a command. I can then quit Python, and by the way, quit is a function, so you have to put little function brackets. And so I've quit Python. So I want Python to show up wherever I am in my OS. I don't want to have to type the full path of the Python executable every time, right? So I don't want to do that. So because of that, I need to go create an environmental variable. So you can go to your system, and it depends on your version of Windows, obviously, but usually it's under an icon called System. And if you go to you change the settings of your system, you'll find usually under the Advanced tab a thing called Environment Variables. And in Environment Variables, you will find a place called Path. Now you have a path for both the system and for users. So you can set up a path just for you, or a path for anybody on this system. So, for example, here I have the system variable called path, and you'll notice that I have C Python 3 scripts and C Python 3 in that path. Every path statement is separated by a semicolon. Now that I've got that in there, whenever I type a command that happens to be in that directory, Windows will find that executable. So the Python program, the Python binary that I want to run is in that C Python 3 folder, and I want to make sure that that is in my path. So whenever I execute Python, it's there and available for me. I also made sure that my Python 3 scripts folder, I created a folder called scripts that are in there. So if I want to run a quick and easy Python script, that is also available in my path as well. You don't have to do that, but that's something I do. All right, so now that I'm done with that, and you've got your environmental variable, there are some tools you may want to consider. Some additional tools. Now, you can get away with executing Python with the Windows command prompt, which is this Windows cmd.exe. So the Windows command prompt will work. The other thing you need is obviously the idle program, which gives you the shell for Python, where you can just run commands directly into it. And then the other thing you need is a handy dandy Notepad. I mean, that's really all you need. We can create all of our Python programs and everything we need using these three tools: the command prompt, the Python shell, and a Notepad. So it's pretty simple, right? Those are all the only tools we really need. Now, there are a lot of tools out there to aid a Python programmer. So there are some that we will probably use right away. So let me talk about those. One of them is either a better text editor than Notepad. Notepad's good, but it doesn't give you fancy features. So one of the ones you may want to consider is I like this one. It's called Conemu. And it's a handy Windows terminal. It's an open source project, and you can go to Conemu and you can download this. Now, when you download it, it just simply you have to unzip it, and you unzip it into a folder. And what I do is I just drop Conemu straight into a directory off my C drive, and now I can run a Conemu terminal. See that? So now I've got a terminal. This works just like the Windows command prompt. One of the differences is that it gives me tabs, so I can run multiple command prompts in one window. It also allows me to save these and color code them and a variety of other things that are much more handy than your typical command prompt. This doesn't require anything special. You can simply just drop this in a directory, and I've just created a shortcut to it right here. No problem. Easy peasy. You can also just run the Python command straight from here, just like other, and now you can type Python commands in here, right? So that really makes it nice using a program like Conemu. And there are a lot of other ones out there. So feel free to browse around. Another program that you may want to consider is Notepad++. And this is a handy tool that a lot of people use. Notepad++ is a free download. And this allows you to download a simple Notepad feature, which gives you line numbers, but it also gives you color coding and structured text. It's really great for Python. The one that I like to use, and you can use your own choice, the one that I've downloaded and you'll see me using in these videos is Sublime. So Sublime, it's a Sublime text editor. So go to sublimetext.com and you can download the Sublime text editor. And Sublime looks like this. So this is an empty Sublime Notepad. So I can create new file, and there we go. I'm off and ready. I'm ready to start typing Python code, right? So, and what's nice about this is I can have multiple tabs open, and Sublime just, well, I think the reason I like Sublime is it just looks cool. I don't think there's any other reason. It looks cool. If you unregister it, it'll nag you every once in a while when you go to try to save. So you might want to send them a couple of bucks. so you don't get that little nasty you can't save anymore message. So there you go. So those are some tools. So Sublime, Conemu, and obviously the Python idle shell, which is always handy, and maybe a few other things. Right? I use Evernote, by the way, for if you Evernote is a tool that I use to track my notes. So as I'm working on something and I want to remember it, I always just take it and I put my sample code or whatever I'm working on in Evernote, and that allows me to keep it. All right, that is it for that. So now let's walk into the next thing. What I want to show, and I'm going to have right now, I'm going to have Sublime open, and I'm going to have Conemu, a command prompt, open. And you're welcome to follow along with whatever tool that you want to use. This isn't going to be a complicated thing we're going to do, but I want to show you a couple things, right? First off, there's something you need to understand about Python. We talked about this earlier in another video, but I want to make sure you understand. So Python, usually when we run Python code, we have a .py file. It always ends in extension .py. That's what we call it, .py. And this is where we have our plain English text. So for example, let's go ahead and open up a .py file. So I'm going to go File, Open File, and I think I've got one here called Hello. Right? Yeah, here we go. So this is the print hello world, right? Hello.py. So this is a script that I can run using Python, and that script is stored here in a .py file. And this is plain code, plain language, easily readable by us humans. And we call this a file, right? This is the .py file. So that's the first thing to understand is when we run Python, we have these files. And these files end in .py, and that is what the Python program runs. Now, what happens though when Python actually gets a hold of one of these .py files, it converts it to what we call a .pyc file, and this is what we refer to not as a file but as bytecode. And if you remember from a previous discussion, bytecode can be ran anywhere. Bytecode can be ran on multiple different types of platforms, Windows, Unix, Linux, Mac, BSD, whatever. Right? So we can run Python on many different types of platforms with bytecode. Right? Now, what's really nice about this is so when we write these .py files, Python converts this into a format that then can be ran on a Python runtime that is on any platform. One thing that makes Python really powerful is that there are a lot of libraries out there and a ton of community support for libraries that can really make our .py files really powerful. So you probably need to start getting familiar with where those are at. So I'm going to go ahead right now, and we're going to just give me a minute here. So here's the Conemu site. We're going to go ahead and go to a website. So there's lots of support sites out there for Python. One of the most popular one is the package index. So it's pypi, .python.org, and then if you do /pypi, the Python package index is what that stands for. So I'm going there, and this is the website. You want to probably bookmark this. This is the Python package index. So these are all of the packages that are available for Python. And Python can very easily just go get these. You have a very simple, you can download the package and unpack it and run Python setup.py. Or within Python itself, you can go get the package. And so what's nice about that is there are literally, well, there are 86,000 packages up here in this Python index right now. So, I mean, it takes a while to learn how to search for the packages because there's so many. But just to give you an idea, I can browse the packages up here. And you'll have to wait for a minute. It's quite, and then I can pick a topic. Like, for example, maybe I'm interested in, let's just think about this. I'm into scientific engineering, or I want text. I want to process a text, or maybe something more excited like a robot. I want to do a robot design, or maybe I'm interested in web frameworks for building web items. Maybe I'm interested in the legal industry, or I'm interested in, there's all sorts of stuff in here. So you can just go through this list and you can see different things that you might want to use or need to use for something you're trying to accomplish. So this is really interesting, right? So there's just a ton of stuff out here. So for example, I want to, I want to do graphics. So I'm going to click on that. And now here are, I've narrowed the selection down to graphics. There are 667 packages in the graphics category. And now I can go and pick one of those, right? So I can just go find one of those. So whoa, there's 106 of those are in the Windows category. So I have Windows and graphics, and there are 106 packages that I can find that are in that area of technology. So you get the idea. This is how you search for a package. You can also go and look at the newest packages that are out there. And they will tell you what the newest packages are. You're welcome to take a look at that. And that's an XML file. And then if you want a tutorial on how to get different packages, you can. Now, we'll use a lot of different packages, but the one thing that's really nice about Python is the one thing that's, and by the way, if you click Show All there, you'll see all the different packages that are in that Windows graphics category. So these are the packages that you can use. So like here's a gallery and image downloader. You gotta just look at all the crazy things you can do. We'll play around with a few, but this is really why people like Python. I mean, this is the reason, because I can just simply go download. I can go link to a package. Write some code against it, and I can generate some really powerful things. Just for an example, I'm into chess. I play a lot of chess, and there's a couple of libraries specifically around chess, and so I've been messing around with how to build a chess engine or something that can read chess games. And all of those packages are available in Python. I just simply reference them, and there I go. So make sure you're familiar with the package index from Python. That is probably the coolest thing about Python. All right, so there are two things that we can do with Python. There's two major things to think about. First off, I can execute a file, right? So if I was in the correct directory, so this is so I'm going to change directories now. I'm going to go to C users. And by the way, so now I'm in the C users directory. I'm going to change directory to go to greams. By the way, you can hit on the emu command prompt. You can hit tab to complete where you're at to make it easier to type. And I have a thing called Python scripts. If I hit tab again, it'll get there. And then so I'm now in the Python scripts directory, and I have a Python in there called hello world, and then I print a couple of numbers, right? Nothing fancy, but I just want to show you that one way to interact with Python, in fact, the main way to interact with Python, is what we call normal mode, and that's when I simply run the Python executable followed by the name of the py file. So I'm going to do python hello.py, and oops, I've got an error. All right, So notice that Python is coming back and saying, nope, that doesn't work. Well, guess what? You get to introduce to one of the many nuances between the differences of Python 2 and Python 3. You'll notice over here in my hello py file, I'm going print hello world, which normally would work. If I ran this in Python 2, I would not have a problem. Python 2 would execute this, no problem. The challenge is, in Python 3, they converted the print to a function. So it actually requires parentheses now, both at the beginning and at the end of the statement. It is now actually a something that requires that. So let's save that, and let's see what happens when we go to print that again. When we run that again. Oh, I'm getting another error message, right? I'm missing parentheses in the call to print, right? So not only do I have to put parentheses around a literal string, but I have to put parentheses around a number too. So check that out. So I bet you I'm going to have to do the same thing here for my little equation. Let me go ahead and put that in there. I'm now converting this Python 2 program into a Python 3 program. Now that I've put my parentheses in, now let's run it. There we go. So now I ran Python hello.py, and I get my string literal passed back to me with the print command called hello world, and I get my 100 number, and I get my 10 times 10, which is 100 number, back. So there I ran a simple little hello py file, and I executed. This is what we call normal mode. Now, there's another mode that we call interactive mode, and that requires you to run the Python shell. And you'll notice I'm in the Python shell, and this is what we call interactive mode. Now, in interactive mode, you can just execute Python commands straight against the shell and get responses. So I could do the same thing here, where I could do print, and I could do, and then I put a quote, hello world, quote, and then close parentheses. And now if I execute this, it's simply going to give me the command back. Now, I can also, by the way, I don't have to use a single quote. I can use a double quote. Either one will work. So I'm going to go hello world again. And there we go. And that works as well, right? And you can also just print numbers. So I can do parentheses, just like we did that number 100. I can do that as well. So I'm printing that, okay? You can also print equations. So as you saw before, I can do 1 plus 1. And Python will give me the result back. What's nice about this is you can just run commands against this, and it actually stores it in memory. So you could potentially set a variable equal to something. So I will go x is equal to me, Guy. Oh, that fails. And the name Guy is not defined. Well, if you think about it, what did I do wrong there? Well, Guy was a string, right? So if I do x equals Guy with a quote around it, now x is equal to a string literal, right? So whenever you're using strings, remember you have to use a quote thing. So I've got now in memory in this shell this variable called x, and I've made x equal to a string literal. Now if I wanted to, I could just do print now, and then I could say print x, right? Because x now exists. And instead of printing x, I'm now printing what was stored in x, which was Guy, if that makes sense. So pretty simple. Even better, I can actually, from the shell, I can even do math commands. So I could do 1 plus 2, and I'll get my answer. I could do 5 times 5, and I'll get an answer. I could do 100 divided by 10. And I'll get 10. Notice that in this case, because it's a division, it automatically does a floating point. You'll see it gets 10.0, which is the floating point. More on floating points and numbers later, but Python is powerful enough to understand decimal placeholders. So, and we'll talk about how far it can and how big of numbers it can handle and all that later. But just suffice it to say, you don't need a calculator anymore. You could sit here with Python and just execute your math commands. Your basic math. Oh, it also can do subtraction. So 100 minus 99. What is that? Oh, there you go. Oh, let's find out what happens when you do 100 minus 1,000. What if you get to a negative number? Oh, it can handle negative numbers too, right? So there you go. This is how to do math functions in Python. Python has a very aggressive math capability. There are libraries which give it even more capability. So if you get into some really gnarly statistical analysis, for example, Python has a whole library on statistics that you can use as well. So really the sky's the limit on what you can accomplish with Python in executing basic commands. So there you go. You're now operating in what we call interactive mode. You're directly typing commands straight into the shell. This is usually helpful to find out what a command does, especially if you're troubleshooting. There you go. Pretty fun, huh? So we've gone over normal mode. We've gone over interactive mode. I've shown you the package index. You understand there's some other tools out there that you might find make life a little easier, such as a command prompt enhancement, a text editor enhancement like Sublime. Okay, so there you go. By the way, sometimes it's helpful. A couple other helpful things. You might want to know how to get your Python version. When you're running in your command prompt, you can type Python if it's in your path, and you can do a -V, and it'll tell you what Python version you're in. By the way, there are multiple ways to do this. There are two methods to get help like that, and so the hyphen and the actual word works as well. Both of these will show you the Python version. You'll notice that sometimes you're working away and something won't work, like I showed you before, where the print statement has now become a command, and can't get it to work, and you're like, why is it not working? Well, maybe it's because you're in the wrong version of Python. So if you're ever asking the Python community for help, they're always going to want to know what Python version you're in. So you'll provide that information to them. You'll say, I'm in Python 3.5.2, and I can't get this print statement to work. And of course, they're going to respond back, well, that's because print requires parentheses now. And you're like, oh, I forgot, oops. And so then you'll be able to do that. So another thing that I thought of just as we were sitting here, as I was talking, another area to go that you might find fun and helpful is there's a wiki, several wikis out there on Python. So one of them is called wiki.python.org. This is maintained by the Python group themselves. So wiki.python.org, you want this simple program. So MOIN/simple programs. And in here, what's nice about this is it gives you just a long laundry list of simple programs that you can download. So you can copy these simple programs, paste them in a .py file, and then you can play with them and execute them and see how fun it is. So before I close out this discussion, let's go ahead and try one, shall we? I'm going to go ahead, and I've downloaded one already. So I downloaded from this website, I downloaded the random number game. So I'm going to open the file, and there's this py file I copied called random number. And here it is. This is the random number file. So now that I'm in that directory, I'm going to type Python randomnumber.py, right? And oh, there it goes. The program is running. It asks me what my name is, Guy, and I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 20. So it wants me to take a guess. So I'm going to I'll go ahead and split the middle, say 10. It says my guess is too high. Well, if it's too, I'll split the difference again. 5. Oh, it's too low. It must be in between. So I'll go 7. Too low. Maybe it's 8. Oh, I got it. I guessed in 4 guesses. All right, so that was a little fun game. So go ahead and download one of the sample programs and try to make it to work. By the way, you're going to find that some of the sample programs were written in Python 2. So you may need to make some adjustments to get them to work in Python 3. So I'm going to post an assignment on this with one of these programs, and that'll be your first assignment this week, is to get one of these Python 2 programs to work in Python 3. All right, you will see that assignment being posted. Thank you for listening, and hope you have a good time learning Python. I'll see you in a week, and we will dive more deeper into some of the Python command sets. We're probably going to focus mostly on variables. All right, thank you. Bye.